Okay, thanks again for your patience. Got the Zoom going. Everybody's settling in here into the space. And we'll be passing the floor to Donna Goodleaf to get us started.
Before we begin, I'm going to do our one of our protocols that we do whenever we have a gathering or a meeting among our people. We always open up with these words called the Ohanda Gariudekwa, and it means the words before all else, and it's a Thanksgiving address to the natural world. It's not a prayer; it's a recognition of our relationship with the natural world. So I'm not a language speaker, so I have to use my notes or my cards to help me go through with this. Ganjakwa, Zebadu Hios Gatni Gariwesa, Ziti, Deiti, Tenuaradu, Negade, Agwegu, Zi Nahodo, Deo da Ware, Zi Yohunzade, Angawane Hestu. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenunine, Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada, Ne Ungwasuha, Togade, Nyoctone, Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenunine, Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada, Ne Yoketni Staha, Zi Yohunzade, Togade, Neo Huntak, Ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenunine, Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada, Ne Ganet Corunio, Togade, Togade ni dunhak ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Gazotsuha, To na Yokto ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Ohundesu a Danu Otarasu a. Togade ne Yokto ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Onunquasu a. Togade ni Nuktak ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Ozi Nuasu a. Togade ni Togade Neon Huktane Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Gaya Tosara, John Hekwa, Togade Neon Huktane Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Gahisua, Togade Neoktane Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Gontirio, To Neokto ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Ojita Ogua, To Neokto ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Ogwida Sua, Togade Nyukta ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Gairi Nikawarage, To Nyokto ne Togade Nyokto ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano Te Tinuarada ne Yoki Soto, Yoki Soto Gora Diweras, To Nyokto ne Mquatnigura. Agwego Aska, Andi Dewe Wenune ne Mquatnigura, Dano te tino radone. Yoki sota a Santa Kahérakwas. Togade nuktumne umkwa ni gura. Agwego aska andi de wehwenune ne umkwa ni gura. Dano te tino radone. Sungwaya disa anja ke neka Kahérakwas. Togade nuktumne umkwa ni gura. Agwego aska andi de wehwenune ne umkwa ni gura. Dano te tino radone. Yoki tso kwaruño. To na yokto ne umkwa ni gura. Agwego aska andi de wehwenune ne umkwa ni gura. Dano te tino radone. Sungwaya diso. To na yokto ne umkwa ni gura. Yawa.
Thank you, Donna. I'll just say a few words. I've been asked to kind of run us through the proceedings of the day before I pass the floor to Anne Whitelaw, who's here with us in person. And maybe take this opportunity for those of you who've just walked into the space to make yourselves comfortable. There are still chairs in the front that I can see. I know nobody likes to sit in the front row, but this is your chance to come on through and make yourselves comfortable here in the space. And if you don't have a chair, we'll get one to you if you're in the back. Thanks so much for coming in on this rainy day. And thanks so much to all the folks who joined us online in such large numbers. So I'll officially just say welcome to Concordia University's For Space. Thank you for joining us for this momentous event as the Center for Teaching and Learning's Office of Decolonizing Curriculum and Pedagogy launches a 5-year strategic implementation plan on decolonizing and indigenizing curriculum and pedagogy. I'll very briefly give you a rundown of the proceedings so that you know what to expect for the next few hours, whether you're joining us online or in person. Letting you know that we're streaming live from For Space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands here in Jagé, Montreal. So you are in Concordia University's knowledge mobilization public space, whereby we activate ongoing research projects and major initiatives with the goal of co-creating knowledge and building community. And wow, today marks the perfect opportunity to do just that. So we really appreciate you being here for this work we're about to embark on. We'll hear from a few people who will come up to the microphone that's set up here in the space. We'll hear from Anne Whitelaw to start, followed by Sandra Gabriel and Manon Tremblay. Then Donna will give an introduction and kind of contextualization to this project that her and her team have embarked on, and will walk us through a kind of PowerPoint presentation that lasts about 20 minutes. So again, those of you in the space at that moment, you're more than welcome to kind of shift your chairs and face the screen and watch the PowerPoint that way. Just make yourselves comfortable is basically what we're suggesting, so you don't have to crank your necks. You're more than welcome to shift your chair around. After this PowerPoint presentation, there's going to be a Q&A sort of panel between Donna and Manon and Sandra here at the table. So during that moment, we welcome questions and comments from the audience as well. If you're joining us in person, just raise a hand, let us know you'd like to speak, and we'll get a microphone to you so that the folks on Zoom can hear you. And we have Melissa here helping us out to do moderation on Zoom. So she'll be taking your questions and comments as well and reading them out if you prefer to use the chat. So that brings us to about 11:15. We're a tightly scheduled machine here today, so I'm speaking fast to make sure we stay on time. At 11:15, we're going to take a little health break, and we're going to put out some food for those of you here in the space, and then we're going to invite you to break out into these 4 tables that have been spread out in the space, and maybe I'll come back online and tell you a little bit about that during the break. So you'll be invited to kind of speak with one another around these 4 sort of priorities that Donna will be introducing, and have a bit of food while you're doing it. For folks online, stay online if you'd like. We will be putting some activities for you into the chat, some questions for you to consider and give us feedback on as well. So please do participate in that way if you can. And then afterwards, we'll do a kind of reportage of what's been said at the various tables. So again, you'll hear from the folks who are kind of taking notes at each table and sharing that with all of us here in the space. And those of you on Zoom are also welcome to participate in that moment. So that's in the last kind of 20 minutes, starting at 12:30 until the end. And Donna will say some final words of thanks and closing. 12:50 to 1. So we have a packed day. Thank you so much once again for being here. And with that, I'll pass the floor to Ann Whitelaw, Provost and Vice President Academic.
Thank you, Anna. Unfortunately, I won't be here until the end, so I won't know how that tight schedule will actually pan out. But it doesn't matter. The importance is the work that gets done here and the conversations that happen at Concordia around decolonization. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Kahérakwas Nation is the custodian of the land and waters on which we work, we learn, and study. Decolonizing, now known as Montreal, is the historical meeting place of a number of Indigenous peoples, and over the centuries, other peoples that have come here to live, to work, and to play. Concordia University makes the territorial acknowledgement to acknowledge where we are, the privilege that we have to be on Indigenous lands, and to acknowledge our thanks to Indigenous peoples to welcome us to their land. During the pandemic, we had a practice, or at least I had a practice, my colleagues had a practice of asking people to recognize and to reflect on the lands that they're on, because they might not be on Kahérakwas land. And so I invite all of those of you who are online to do some reflection there. And also more generally to think about the place where you are, how you got here, and the peoples with whom you have interactions with on a daily basis. And what better opening for this fantastic event that we're here today to launch the strategic plan on decolonizing and indigenizing curriculum and pedagogy. I am beyond happy. Perhaps I'm not emoting as much as I could, but I am so thrilled that we're at this moment. It's a conversation that I've been having with Donna for a very long time. It's a conversation that she has been urging Concordia to have for a very long time, and I am just so thrilled with the content, with the work, with what it will provide for us as a university to move forward in thinking about how we teach and learn. So more formally, today is a historic event. We're ushering in the 5-year strategic implementation plan on decolonizing curriculum and pedagogy. And this is a plan that provides us with a roadmap to decolonize, to indigenize, and to co-construct knowledge that values and centers Indigenous worldviews, voices, and perspectives across the curriculum university-wide. And we'll do this by working in collaboration with the Office of Decolonizing Curriculum and Pedagogy, many of whom are here, with Indigenous faculty, staff, and students, also many of whom are here, and with Indigenous communities, all in respectful and meaningful ways. The strategic plan calls upon all of us, all academic senior leaders, myself included, chairs, faculty departments, to fulfill our responsibilities and to be accountable to support this critical work. We need to engage in action-oriented processes that challenges us to be unsettled, to move from comfort zones, to divest from perpetuating Eurocentric canons of thought across the curriculum. We also need to review our policies and our practices, our university policies and practices, for the ways that they perpetuate the erasure of Indigenous voices, histories, and perspectives across the university. This is ongoing work. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's not something that's going to be simple, but it's something it's work that needs to be done. To move forward on this work of decolonization, we must acknowledge that Indigenous communities, faculty, staff, and students continue to experience forms of colonial violence, not only in Canadian society in general, but at Concordia University as well. The unveiling of this 5-year strategic plan on decolonizing curriculum and pedagogy is timely and urgent. As a community, we must support, lead, and demonstrate our collective actions and shared responsibilities that stem from our institutional commitment to decolonize and indigenize curriculum and pedagogies accordingly. The overall framework of the plan is grounded in several documents, such as the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the calls to action of the 2015 Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Concordia's own 9 strategic directions, particularly Teach for Tomorrow, Deliver Next-Gen Education that is Connected and Transformative, and the forthcoming Teaching and Learning Strategic Plan. Most importantly, however, this plan fulfills Action Item 2.1 of the Indigenous Directions Action Plan, Decolonizing Curriculum and Pedagogy, one of the many critical priorities that underscores Concordia's commitment to decolonizing the Academy. As Donna will present to us later on today, this strategic plan identifies 4 key strategic priorities with examples of action-oriented goals that serve as an ethical framework for the deans, chairs, and faculty departments to engage in active listening and dialogue, build shared learning communities, build trusting and respectful relationships with Indigenous communities. Finally, this plan is critical for Concordia University as an institution because it sets forth a vision and lays out the foundational work that we need to do together as a community. Reading the plan, I commit to engaging in active listening, developing trusting and respectful relationships in order to support and uphold the work so eloquently expressed in the strategic plan. I also commit to doing this work in collaboration with Indigenous communities, faculty, staff, and students. On behalf of the President's Office and Concordia University, I want to acknowledge and express our deepest gratitude, congratulations, and a thank you to Dr. Kahérakwas Donna Goodleaf, Director, Decolonizing Curriculum and Pedagogy, as well as members of her team, for their hard work envisioning and authoring this important 5-year strategic plan on decolonizing curriculum and pedagogy. I also want to thank all of you for the ongoing work you do to support and guide the university on our collective journey to actively engage in concrete actions that demonstrate our commitment as a university to decolonizing. It's a long journey, but it's critical that it's a long journey because it signals that the work that we're doing is important, and it signals that the work that we're doing in a way that is deliberate, thoughtful, and meaningful. So I look forward to the parts of the day I'll be able to attend and to thank all of you for your participation and your commitment to this important strategy. And now I think I'm passing it off to Sandra Gabriel.
Just before I end up tripping over this, I'm just going to do a little rearranging. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy to see you all here, and welcome to everyone who's online. I'm really proud of the work that's led us to this moment. In reflecting on this day and what it means to adopt this strategy and the commitments we make within it, I'm reminded of why we're doing this work. The formal call to action came from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the specific targets for universities to redress the years of organized and sanctioned work to annihilate Indigenous peoples, cultures, and ways of being. From these tragic circumstances, the TRC called on universities to introduce Indigenous content, engage with Indigenous pedagogies, epistemologies, values, and worldviews in their academic curricula and in their programs. And Anne has also reminded us of the very ways in which we work and the policies that really have guided our work on our campus as well as being part of this work. I'm very proud to say that we have already begun this work with the launch of the land-based education microprogram and the hours and hours of work many departments have already undertaken to decolonize their approaches to university education, to add Indigenous perspectives and ways of being to their curricula, and to rethink how their teaching itself can support decolonization. A hallmark of our forthcoming teaching and learning strategy, Learning for Impact, is to support our classrooms to be spaces of transformation. University, for many of our learners, is a time of exploration, a time to discover things about the world around them, but also about themselves, and the potential that each learner has to make an impact on the world around them. When we say this, we affirm that the value of a university education is also self-reflection, a deeper sense of self-knowledge, because this is the place from which we can enter into a meaningful set of relationships with the peoples around us. The strategy today implicates all of us as educators to think about the systems we are a part of and that we represent, but it also implicates every member of our community, including our learners. When Donna and I spoke about the strategy and how to introduce it, we spent a lot of time talking about the values it takes on. These are the signposts that not only ground our work, and I am intentional in saying our here, because this is not the work of the Decolonizing Pedagogy's team, nor of the CTL, it is all of our work. These values not only ground our work, but they provide for us the reminders of who we are and what we are called to do as educators and citizens of the land now known as Canada. We cannot enter into this work without knowing our own histories, the ways in which we as settlers have benefited from the systems that have sought to destroy Indigenous ways of life. The good mind, Donna will tell you more about this in her presentation, one of the values that upholds this strategy, must be compassionate to the self and to others if collaboration and a sense of community can truly flourish. The strategy today, in other words, calls on all of us to work individually, but as much and perhaps even more so collectively, to work together with open minds in a spirit of curiosity. These values will be our signposts when things get hard, when we make mistakes, and when we face the true challenge of what these calls mean. But the work ahead is truly accomplished best as a community. There are some who will think that this project is almost impossible, and there are some who will think that we are sacrificing rigor and freedom to do this work. These are, in fact, common reactions. And today I offer those of you who share that point of view an invitation to think about where we are as a space of learning, which demands that we seek to understand how our assumptions about the world around us have been formed and how they've become embedded in our systems and ways of knowing and working. This is fundamental to our work as scholars, as educators, and as those committed to learning. The hope that I have is that we will be open to continue this learning together as a community. Thank you.
So my name is Manon, and I'm the Senior Director, Indigenous Directions. I'm also Plains Cree, member of the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. And one of the problems with not speaking first is that the people who speak before you have a tendency to say everything you want to say. So now I'm left thinking, what am I going to say? So I'm going to speak from the heart. I first met Donna at the Building Reconciliation Forum in Algoma, and I first met Anne at the same place, and it wasn't a very good forum. But it was a good place because it wasn't good. It was a good place to actually forge some new relationships. And at the time, I was still the director of Indigenous research at SSHRC, and I had no clue that I was going to come back to Concordia. And then things happened, and I came back a second time to Concordia, and Donna and I forged this, I would say, incredible working relationship, very close working relationship, and we were constantly talking with each other and constantly working side by side. So I know personally how much work she has put into this strategy. I know how much work she put in decolonizing curriculum before the strategy came through. I know how, and some of you do know how as well because you've worked with her, how before the strategy she put so much effort into decolonizing or helping individual faculty members, departments, units, faculties, to help them decolonize curriculum and pedagogies on a case-by-case basis, one-on-one. So this is now this 5-year strategy lays it all out. Now there's a strategy, there's a plan, there's a roadmap to say this is how it's going to go. And it's also a roadmap, I think, that is a statement that says, that it's an institutional statement that says this is no longer an option. We have to do this. And we have to do this because when we talk about decolonization, we talk about decolonization, we concurrently talk also about EDI. Equity, diversity, inclusion. And personally, I don't like the word inclusion because inclusion means it's still your house. And I still have to watch what I say. I still have to abide by your rules. I still have to take off my shoes. What we want is not inclusion. What we want is a sense of belonging. We want to be able to go into every classroom. We want to be able to walk into any office, any boardroom and say, hey, I belong here. This is mine, Nikananoma. This is my house. This is our home. And we can't achieve that if we don't feel safe on campus. We can't achieve that if we don't feel safe in our classrooms. And by that, I don't mean physically, in the sense that we feel like some physical harm is going to happen to us on campus, although it might. I mean that, our students very often tell us that, when they walk into the classroom, they don't know how professors or fellow students will talk about their cultures, will talk about their people, how things about that are very, very important to them will be discussed. And I think Donna and Sandra and Anne and I can testify to the fact that there isn't a single semester that goes by without students coming to us in crisis and telling us about things that have been said in the classroom. So this is very important. And as Sandra was saying, it's not about decolonizing curriculum or decolonizing anything, actually. Is not about you forgetting everything you've always known and doing things differently necessarily. It's about looking at how you're doing things and whether you can do things a little bit differently, whether you can add value, and of course adding the Indigenous perspectives into the curriculum. Now I say perspectives, Indigenous knowledges, plural. I mean, I look around the room right now and I can't necessarily see everybody, but I can see at least 6 different Indigenous nations in the room right now. Indigenous knowledges. We're not all the same. In fact, if there's anything that, my relationship with Donna and with Carol and Natasha and Alan and Christy in the back, and my emerging relationship with Cheyenne, who is new to Concordia, and with Savannah, is just that. Is the fact that as a Cree person who comes from Treaty Number 6 territory, I'm forgetting another Mi'kmaq person, and it's just, I'm learning so much from these other cultures as well. I'm learning about their ethics, their values, their protocols that are, so fundamentally different than the ones that I was raised with. And so that's important also, in that decolonizing piece, is to recognize that we are not all the same. And we do not all believe the same things, and we may disagree on a lot of things, actually. But fundamentally, we also agree on a lot of things too. And we agree that this is a very important piece of work, and this strategy is going to help bring safer classrooms for our students, and hopefully for our students, faculty, and staff as well, start fostering that sense of belonging at Concordia. Thanks.
Okay. Can we put this back on?
Do you want to start the PowerPoint now?
Yeah.
Okay. more than welcome to make yourselves comfortable to face the screen.
Okay, before I begin, I wanted to kind of just show the background of the quilt that my cousin Carla Hemlock made. She's a well-known international artist, and it's one of her earliest quilts made, and I bought it from her. And it also has the cover of my book that she that she embedded in the quilt. And so for me, this is a very, very special quilt, and I wanted to use this as a symbol of reflecting who I am, the world, the people that I come from, and our positioning in this university. So I'm just very proud of this quilt. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint presentation, and then afterwards what we're going to do is open up for questioning from the audience. So the panel here will sit here and we'll be able to answer and address any comments or questions that you may have to us as a panel. And also we would like to take some time to also answer any questions coming from people that are online on Zoom. So just to kind of respect them and honor them as well, that they're part of this space. So bear with me, and here we go. So in the beginning, I talked about the Kahérakwas, and that's one of our ceremonial functions that we do at gatherings, and so for me, it's grounded in Gahnikorio, which means a good mind, and we're always reminded when we gather that we bring the best of our hearts and our minds together as one in this place, and to listen to the speaker as I open up with the Kahérakwas. I already did that. But I just wanted to just show you that, and I'll skip that. I wanted to show you in English, Drahansa, the significance of the words that I said this morning, the Kahérakwas, and basically it reminds us as humans of our individual and our collective responsibilities to treat each other with respect, to acknowledge, to value, and give thanks to our kindred relationships, the people, our mother, the earth, the waters, the fish, the grasses, the trees, the fruits, the vegetable life, the medicines, the animals, the birds, the thunderers, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the four winds, and to the creators of life, all which continue to sustain us on earth and to live in peace and harmony with each other, in balance with the natural world. This worldview expresses and recognizes the principles of equality and the interrelationship that continues to exist between humans and the natural world. All are equal and interrelated. In the context of this strategic plan on decolonizing curriculum and pedagogy, these opening words provide us with a grounded space and a thoughtful approach to come together and draw upon the collective strength of Gahnikorio to examine and challenge modes of Eurocentric canons of thought by recentering Indigenous voices, histories, and ways of knowing and doing across departmental curriculum. I draw upon the principles that's embodied in the Haudenosaunee Confederacies, the Turo Wampum Belt, known as Degani, Deo Tataje, Gaswanta. It's recognized as the grandfather of all treaties, and the Turo Wampum Belt established an ethical framework of how colonial settler governments, the Dutch, the French, the British, Canada, and the United States, and their descendants were, and to me, to continue to conduct themselves as guests and or settlers living in the lands of Haudenosaunee. The Turo Wampum Belt serves as a principled ideological space and an ethical framework to establish trusting, collaborative relationships to guide departments within and across the 5 faculties on ways to approach this work on decolonizing and indigenizing curriculum. This work is accomplished by practicing active listening and respectful engagement in dialogue with each other while embarking upon action-oriented processes that decenters Eurocentric forms of knowledge through an Indigenous decolonizing lens, while also embedding diverse forms of Indigenous knowledge systems across the curriculum. It's grounded in the international context of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Article 15, that Indigenous peoples have the fundamental political and human right to the dignity and diversity of cultures, traditions, and our histories to be appropriately reflected in all education systems. It draws upon the Truth and Reconciliation report, calls to action, and it calls for all Canadian educational institutions to change and redress Canada's shameful legacy of residential schools and advance the process of truth-telling across Canada. I draw upon the University Canada Principles on Indigenous Education in 2016 that calls upon principles that lay out an Indigenous education, recognizing the importance of creating institutional and academic spaces and the intellectual contributions of Indigenous peoples based on mutual and trusting relationships between Indigenous peoples and the universities. I also ground this work on Concordia University's 9 strategic directions, Teach for Tomorrow, to deliver a next generation education that's connected and transformative. I also draw upon Concordia University's recent report, Teaching and Learning Conversations, a report that came out in 2022 that was headed by Sandra Gabriel, where faculty and students also identify the critical need to decolonize the curriculum that exists at Concordia. I also draw upon the Indigenous Directions Action Plan, which provided Concordia University a pathway towards decolonizing and indigenizing the university. And so Action 2.1 refers to developing a plan to build the capacity of faculty members to decolonize and indigenize curriculum content across all academic departments. This is the work that I draw from and I embed from moving forward. The mission for this strategic plan, as direct beneficiaries of Concordia University's curriculum programs, students will be grounded in the knowledge and ability to critically evaluate the history and impacts of colonialism, value the importance of learning about diverse Indigenous histories, voices, and perspectives, while experiencing creative learning opportunities both in and out of the classroom. The values I have laid out here, I draw from Kahérakwas Donna, respect, cultural safety, student success, Indigenous ways of thinking and doing. Kahérakwas, as I mentioned earlier, it's in Ganyageha, and it means a good mind. So in this context, it's about faculty coming together and the senior leadership coming together to have a good mind that is caring and compassionate with self and towards each other. I also draw upon another Ganyageha term, Gazanstasara, and what that means is power. And in this context of this strategic plan, it's about faculty departments working collaboratively, collectively contributing to the power and the strength and the wisdom and active commitment to decolonize and indigenize curriculum and pedagogical practices. So it's always about coming here and doing this work with a good intentions in your heart, but also drawing upon and supporting each other and having a good way of thinking, a good mind when we do this work. And to me, this is really, really important values, along with the rest. I wanted to just give definitions for those two for now. So next, I identify 4 strategic priorities. Priority number 1, decolonize and indigenize curriculum and pedagogy university-wide. The goal is to critically evaluate and decenter Eurocentric knowledge systems across all academic programs university-wide, reconceptualizing curriculum in ways that center and weave and privilege Indigenous ways of knowing, lived experiences, histories, and perspectives across the curriculum in respectful and meaningful ways. This will be achieved by cultivating a collective critical consciousness among faculty to gain an understanding on what Indigenous decolonization, colonization, indigenization means within the context of decolonizing curriculum and pedagogical practices, facilitating and engaging in collaboration with faculty departments on co-designing and implementing workshops to reflect departmental units' distinct needs, by conducting one-on-one faculty consultations, and by creating experiential learning opportunities, i.e. land-based training programs for faculty as well as for students. Examples of some actions to facilitate conversations with the deans, the associate deans, to discuss and identify key departmental units to collaborate on co-designing unique and specific training needs for faculty units on ways to decolonize and indigenize curricular programs, to facilitate conversations with sustainability, accessibilities, experiential learning in the Black Perspectives Office on creating collaborative curriculum projects and training that provide faculty opportunities, strategies, and tools to embed Indigenous and inclusive pedagogical practices across the curriculum. Providing workshops and training for faculty councils, chairs, and faculty departments in decolonizing curriculum and pedagogical practices in ways that promote Indigenous epistemologies, pedagogical practices in respectful and meaningful ways. Develop and implement land-based training opportunities to increase faculty's knowledge and understanding regarding local Indigenous community protocols, land ethics, and its implications for curricular design and pedagogical practices. Priority number 2, cultural safety across diverse learning spaces, curriculum and pedagogical practices. The goal is to provide training and support for faculty development that focus on Indigenous pedagogical practices and intervention strategies to address the ongoing systemic racism, the tokenism, harmful stereotypes, and the microaggressions in the classroom and their impact on Indigenous students. This will be achieved by working in collaboration with GradPro Skills, the Equity Office, and the CTL's Inclusive Pedagogy on ways to co-design and implement workshops for faculty and grad students to address these issues of microaggression and racism that occurs in the classroom, and designing intervention strategies to promote cultural safety in the classroom and give students voice and agency to thrive and succeed based on their own aspirations of educational success. Examples of actions is to work with faculty and co-design some workshops around cultural safety and intervention. Like I mentioned earlier, collaborating with these different entities, GradPro Skills, the Equity Office, to do workshops for graduate students and TAs on ways to address microaggressions and develop the knowledge and skills to promote cultural safety in the classroom for all students. Priority number 3, develop and co-design new programs in collaboration with Indigenous communities to foster, strengthen, and build trusting, respectful, collaborative relationships with Indigenous communities with a view to explore opportunities to co-design new programs that reflect the distinct needs and priorities of Indigenous peoples, and not the other way around, where we as Concordia go and try and impose programs. It has to come from Indigenous peoples. We know what we need, therefore we need to lead and determine what is it that we want. This will be achieved by engaging, facilitating conversations with local Indigenous communities to explore collaborative opportunities in co-designing programs that reflect their distinct needs and the priorities of our communities, Indigenous communities. Example of action I mentioned earlier, to foster community engagement and conversations with local Indigenous communities, and have those conversations to explore ways of how we begin to develop program needs for their communities. Priority number 4, expand and support collaborative shared learning communities across faculty units. The goal here is to increase opportunities and support internal and cross-faculty unit collaborations on shared learning experiences in undertaking transformative curricular changes by participating in decolonizing and indigenizing initiatives. This will be achieved by collaborating with faculty leads and organizing, co-designing, and implementing shared learning communities that promote networking and bring cross-faculty collaborative units together throughout the academic year to share their learning experiences, the challenges and the opportunities engaged in decolonizing curriculum and pedagogical practices. In collaboration with the deans, associate deans, chairs, faculty, to foster and facilitate shared learning communities, gatherings, and/or workshops across faculty departments currently undertaking curricular changes. So what I have here, I mapped out kind of just, it's a proposed framework over the next 5 years of some of the overarching work that will take place. And keep in mind that after each year, we are going to assess our goals, do a preliminary analysis of the data that we get from faculty departments in terms of what their needs are, the training needs that they need, the resources that they need, which will then inform the following year, the operational plan for the strategic plan. So what I propose here is just a proposed framework to think about, and give you, like, you know, what it looks like. So just keep in mind that it's going to change each year, which it should. You don't want to remain static. Year 2, here I put in a bit more data, kind of giving people a sense of the different training and the workshops that will take place across over the year, meeting with different faculty, developing submissions of curriculum proposals, working with faculty councils, getting it approved at different levels for Senate approval for curriculum, piloting a land-based training for faculty development, meeting with and collaborating with grad post skills, ongoing communications with Indigenous communities, conversations, developing planning, curriculum, committee meetings with them. So anyway, so this kind of gives you a sense of some of the, you know, detail that we can look at and explore that will happen in year 2. Again, it could change based on the direction that community want to go. Because for me, it's about providing the support where faculty are at and giving them the tools and the knowledge to work with them and move them at a place where, you know, that'll help them engage in this work. And at the end of each year, we continue to examine the data that we've gathered throughout the year, working with different departments and seeing what the new needs are, what are the new challenges that are arising, and how do we develop interventions to kind of support and address and provide the opportunities for faculty in moving this plan. Year 6 is the same, it's just very broad. Year 7 is the same. So I kind of wanted to just give people a sense, you know, of what this looks like for the next 5 years, very broad. So the spirit and intent of this strategic plan on decolonizing and indigenized curriculum and pedagogy embodies the guiding principles as reflected in the Kahérakwas and the Turo Wampum Belt Treaty, meaning that the work outlined in this document has no ending, but is a living document intended to flourish and transform in response to the collective actions we take as we move forward on this journey of decolonizing and indigenizing curriculum pedagogical practices university-wide. Closing words. Decolonizing and indigenizing the academy sets a roadmap for all university stakeholders to embrace opportunities to co-construct knowledge with Indigenous peoples and communities, while creating a better future for all that values Indigenous ways of knowing and moves us closer to creating a society based on Haudenosaunee principles of peaceful coexistence, respect, and healthy, trusting relationships that ensures all of humanity and all elements of the natural world have a future. So that is it. Yay. So now for this part, what we're going to do is open up the floor for questions or comments from the audience to the panel here, and also give some time for people that are online to also hear their questions or comments as well. So I thank you. Questions, comments? Yeah. Oh. John Paul.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Donna, for that wonderful presentation. Sure, certainly. Thanks very much.
It's okay.
Thanks. I was saying good morning, Donna and all. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. As a newcomer to the university, I'm so proud to be part of this community that is doing this important and necessary work. I was really pleased when I saw your mission and in your values that you had so clearly articulated student success as a priority. But I was curious, when it came to formulating the 6 values that you have listed, what was your process for settling on those values?
Good question. I had more than 6. And so I was advised to kind of just, let's shorten it, because I could have went on. But to me, those were, having kahnikario, a good mind, is so critical for us as faculty, as a community, to come with and to work from. Because the power of a people, the power of a good mind collectively to think about and to work together. Culture safety, I think about all the students, which is very, very important. Indigenous ways of knowing our knowledge systems is so important to centralize and to, as you know, this is the cornerstone of this work. And I forgot the other one. But anyways, student success, right. Thank you, Sandra. I know. I'm nervous. And so for me, those values is what really touched my heart, and it's got to be it. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Please.
Hi, thank you very much. As new faculty here, I just had some questions in terms of just on the level of teaching. some of the stuff that I've already been integrating across classes that I've taught before as a part-time faculty. But I'm curious in terms of just practically, in terms of kind of reporting, or how do we communicate like those changes that we are making to, for example, our syllabus? Should that go through the chair? We obviously don't want to burden you with all of this, so I'm wondering just like how will we measure those successes from your side, but also as just faculty, what can we do to actually like make that transmission of communication easier? That's
an excellent question. I don't have a perfect answer here, but here's what I'm coming based on the experience that I've been doing working with faculty. And so for me, when I look at the creation of how faculty were able to form these shared learning communities, and I work with them, working with them, critiquing their course outlines, and then giving them the feedback, and then getting them to implement their course outline, and staying in touch with them to make sure that they're not alone, that once you do this, I throw you out to the wolves, right? No, I don't do that. For me, it's so important that I hear and I listen and I participate in the conversations with faculty, because for me that's one way of getting anecdotal evidence of where faculty are at, how they're doing, what's working, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, but also looking at student impact. In previous work that I've done with other faculty, we looked at student feedback through journaling or through their course evaluations. And it changed their thinking. And I can tell you that, students are hungry for this, and the fact that it's been identified in these different reports, students are hungry for this, and to me that's really exciting, because it tells me that we're in a really good, exciting time, and so it's and so for me also another way is, like I was saying earlier, was to like in working with one department, for example. What's happening is that I put faculty through some training on what decolonizing their curriculum looks like, practical strategies, and then and then having them organize these small network of circles, shared learning circles, and getting that kind of feedback. So so that's how we can been kind of marking it, just kind of monitoring it, because this is a huge task, and for me, thinking ahead, I was actually having a conversation with one of my colleagues in the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I was actually saying, as we embark on this process or continue to embark in this work, we also need to look at metrics, but it has to be metrics that also come from an Indigenous perspective, and what does that look like? So for me, it's also looking at ways of how do we also kind of monitor. I'm not looking at statistics, or I'm not looking. I want qualitative, because the stories, from an Indigenous perspective, our stories is so valuable, and the stories from faculty and from students is valuable, and that for me is what I would really want to highlight in terms of looking at and designing some metrics of how we're going to assess the progression. There's no end road, because as I tell faculty, decolonizing curriculum and pedagogy, it's a lifelong journey. Just because you take workshops that with me, it doesn't mean that you're decolonized, right? No, you've just started the work. And I really acknowledge and I appreciate faculty who are honest with themselves and share that they're very afraid to embark on this process because they don't know what this is. And so I've really learned how to pay attention to that and to develop more incremental steps to ground them in the fundamental knowledge and understanding that it is so essential, because cultivating a critical consciousness is key. And you have to look at yourselves and how you were educated and how that has informed, you know, your design of your courses and how you've been complicit in perpetuating Eurocentric canons of thought. And so transformation takes place with the individual as well, and then bringing this work out on an external level and going through this journey is really amazing. And it's so great to see. I see the faces, you know, the expressions from faculty, you know, when they're going through this and where they're at. It's amazing to see, you know. So for me, it's a collaborative effort, and I can't do this alone. And yeah.
Just on that note of collaboration, as you can tell, Dawn is very enthusiastic about doing this work, but this is maybe a hard thing to ask of a new faculty member, but I would really encourage you to talk to your chair, let your chair know. Your chair can then tell their dean or their associate dean, and we can trickle upwards as well. It's, not all on Donna's shoulders, but that really, as Donna was saying, that inciting and encouraging, especially as a new faculty member, those conversations to happen departmentally means that there's tiny little changes and opportunities for change that can happen even when you're not even aware of it. And I think there's something really beautiful and powerful about that, right? That, hey, this person's new and they're already thinking about that. Dang, maybe I should get my groove on a little bit more and get going on the work as well, right? And I think as maybe you'll remember at the new faculty orientation said, when you arrive with fresh eyes, you have such an incredible perspective, right? And I think there's a really special moment, but I think all of us can step into that role, right? And looking with new eyes, with an openness to the things that we can do, but really bringing it to the level of your department means a lot, right? Because it's encouraging everyone to start doing that work as a collective and to really not take it all on your own. Yeah, so thanks for that question. It's a really good one.
Question?
Hi, I am actually the chair that Kevin was referring to. I'm Pippin, I'm the chair of Design and Computation Arts. The presentation was fantastic. I really liked your answer there as well, Sandra, and you, Donna, talking about the hunger that students have. And the idea of, I guess, awakening that hunger. And for myself, I felt very pulled into things. I worked with Jason Lewis on some of his skins workshops, so I got an opportunity to be part of something, and that's forever influenced how I look at things moving forwards. And Sandra was talking about, I guess, feeding the hunger from the bottom up, which I think is really, it's clearly something that we need to be doing and will be doing. But I wanted to ask, I don't know if it's provocative or just ridiculous, about more sort of sweeping top-down, like in fine arts we have this course, FFAR 250, which all of the fine arts students take. Are there any dreams or plans or ideas around, could we be doing something at scale where you, I don't know, initiate the hunger in the students when they come in so that they can also bring those eyes to all of their future courses and to kind of, like, are there ideas in that direction? Is there money?
So if I understand you correctly, so a strategy that I share when I present to different departments is, it's overwhelming because, it's like, oh my God, the whole departmental curriculum has to go through a review. Yes. But in terms of concrete strategies, in terms of starting now, for me, I tell faculty, let's look at your core courses in your department and choose one or two courses that all incoming students have to take. And let's start there. And then think about the core courses that students have to take to exit out, to graduate. Let's choose one or two courses there. And to me, that's how we can kind of start with that process, because you're targeting and to me, it's the core courses, right? And it's also the creation of new courses that is necessary. We need new courses. you know, and I think that we have to be very bold, we have to be very courageous, and we have to think out of the box, and let's be dynamic about it, you know, because we need new courses, and let's do this. So to me, that's, you know, that's something that I tell chairs, you know, faculty to think about. So it's not like overwhelming for them to consider, because I know from conversations with them, it's so overwhelming. But if we just start at this level, it's doable. And then we develop a work plan, like what I did with FOFA in working with them. And then what we did was we identified courses, and then we also developed a work plan of how we're going to work together for the whole year in developing new courses, and also critiquing and realigning existing courses. So it's a work plan, right? So it becomes operational. That to me is concrete, because I want to say something here. Presenting the strategic plan, giving you ideas, the framework, the philosophy. Concordia, you're being watched, right? Because we have people that are on Zoom from other universities, and they're watching us. And so at the end of the year, what do you have to show? So for me, I look to Anne, I look to Sandra, I look to the chairs, the deans, you know, it's like, let's be really awesome. And let's, you know, let's show at the end of the year the work we've been doing. Here's where we're at. Here's where my department's at. We got one course that a core course that we transformed. And that's good. You know, so for me, in terms of that kind of benchmarking and monitoring, that's what I'm looking for, because it demonstrates the accountability. So it's not just words about commitment, but it's also demonstrating action. That this is what you have done as a department, as a dean, you know, so for me, that way we're coming together and we're able to share with each other what we've been doing and be proud of it, you know, and so for me, that's what I'm after. You got homework to do. So I wanted to say that because it's so important for accountability as well. You guys are, you know, you have a lot of homework to do. You're accountable for this. And we need your help, you know, and let's do it.
Thank you so much, Donna, for, I'm sorry. But thank you so much, Donna, and Manuel and the whole team. And, you know, I really commend the amount of effort and time that went into the strategic plan and for today's presentation. You know, we're talking a lot about the work that has to be done on campus, and I want to echo what was previously said. You know, it's a really exciting time to be a staff member and a student at Concordia and to be a part of this, and it is really kind of a global effort. But when we think about Concordia stakeholders, there are arguably more stakeholders off campus when we think about alumni and employer partners. And I think, you know, there's a lot of responsibility for non-student facing units and staff members that are, you know, working with these off-campus stakeholders to be putting in the work and effectively communicating, you know, these efforts to them as well. And so the question is, are we thinking about that as well? You know, as we get our hands dirty on campus and we build momentum and confidence in the work that we're doing, you know, over the next 5 years, are we also thinking about how it's then being communicated to those stakeholders? Because at the end of the day, our students graduate and then we, you know, put them out into the world, and we want to make sure that it continues to be a psychologically and physically safe environment for them.
Mm-hmm. That's a very important question you're asking, and I hope so. You know, I hope so, that we can also embark on that path. I wouldn't leave it out right now. I'm just trying to get ahead of this. Definitely would love to conversations with you to.
Yeah, I gotta go now.
We can do that and move it forward. Before
the air conditioning on?
another question, I'm hearing.
Huh? If you don't want the air.
Somebody online that doesn't have their
Oh.
camera.
I just wanted to, Provost Whitelaw has to leave, and I wanted to ask if anybody has any questions for her, or if Anne wants to say some final words before she leaves. Does anybody have any questions for the Provost? Put you on.
I was going to say my timing is terrible because I think the last question was about accountability, and somebody mentioned money, and then suddenly the provost leaves. So the timing's never good when those two things happen side by side. But what I do want to reiterate is my absolute enthusiasm and complete support in the work that Donna's done. And into the work that all of you are doing. I really appreciate the new faculty members saying, I want to do this. How do I actually, what are the metrics? Wow. When do you hear a new faculty member ask you about metrics? And you didn't quite say KPIs, but that was the vibe that I got. So that's great. And a chair standing up saying, yeah, how do we do this? So I've loved the questions that have come up. I love the enthusiasm. I think that the important thing is for all of us to be the champions for this in the areas where we do have the opportunity to be champions, to be able to say, yes, it looks like a daunting task. Yes, it will require us to be thinking differently about how to do that. But if a university can't think differently about knowledge and about the way that we do things, then what organization is going to be able to do that? So we do have to think about that from the basic knowledge that we're giving our students in all disciplines. It's not just in the arts and the humanities and the social sciences. Donna's been doing outstanding work in engineering. There's STEM work that can be done. It's thinking creatively, thinking openly, and being curious. And to me, fundamentally, that's what a university is. So I think let's think big, let's think imaginatively. And in many cases, there's going to be the small work at the local level that will then grow and expand. And hopefully, to the last question about alumni, I'm not sure Concordia at this point should be responsible for decolonizing the world. And we do have alumni around the world, but I take the point of it can't stop at our walls. There's an engagement with Indigenous communities, absolutely, but there's also an engagement with other communities and being very clear about what our values are and what kind of behaviors, of languages, of approaches that we will support and those that we will not support. I know that in our co-op office, we're doing a lot of work around the safety of our students when they go out into placements and how to respond to workplace situations that are not safe, where they do feel like they're not being appreciated and are having major challenges. How do we have that conversation with the employer to say, no, not cool, we don't accept this, we will not place our students with you any longer. So I think those are the kinds of, and Alumni also Affairs has been doing a lot of work in building decolonizing workshops and support for Indigenous initiatives. So maybe on that note, I'll just end and once again thank Donna for the outstanding work that she's been doing for years, even before she was in this official position, and also to thank members of the team who have been doing an incredible work supporting, but also doing their own work. So thank you again. And on that note, I'm leaving.
I'd like to now go to some questions that are online, and if we can hear them.
Yes, we have some great questions from folks on Zoom. A question here, can you talk more to what the land-based training for faculty would look like?
That's a very good question. I don't know yet. I have to kind of co-design that with my own community around that first, and also have conversations with faculty who are interested. Mind you, this is not going to be like for all faculty. To me, I want faculty who have demonstrated the work that they've been involved in around decolonizing their curriculum. And so for me, that's really important in terms of looking at faculty. But that's a very good question.
We have another question. One thing that might facilitate the work a bit is the sharing of resources across departments and faculties by having a repository of Indigenous knowledges, stories, frameworks, etc., that we can adapt to our unique contexts. Is this possible?
Yes, in fact, I actually have a decolonization hub under the Center for Teaching and Learning. If you go there, there's lots of resources there that faculty and students can go to. And also, one of the strategies that we've been doing in working with different faculties in this work was the idea that I think came from Monica Gagnon about hiring grad students to start doing the research and start to collect the resources that's related to their particular discipline. So that way the department's building up their own resources as well. And so for me, that's because that takes the weight off my back to kind of do the research and collect that data and then share it, because I've been doing that in the beginning and it's a lot of work. So, that's a really, really great idea. So that's one way to do that.
Wonderful. Next question. I'm curious to know how much the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation seeks to take on a leadership role in relation with Concordia, and if we, as Concordia students, will see more visibility of both Kanien'kehá:ka cultural elements and of Kanien'kehá:ka across Concordia campuses and within classrooms.
Good question. Hopefully, one of the things that I really encourage faculty to do in terms of designing their curriculum is to really follow the principle of localizing the curriculum, meaning that there's a list of resources there about who we are as Haudenosaunee people, and there's like a lot of digital videos. There's articles, there's different podcasts that's done by our people on our history, and so for me that provides us with faculty to use to kind of embed in their curriculum. I will give you an example. One of the professors, dedicated 3 weeks in her course outline, that was Professor Gagnon, just on the land acknowledgement, because I also do a workshop on territorial land acknowledgement and critiquing it, but also using it as a tool for faculty to embed it in their curriculum and not just like put it on your course outline and then like abstract it with no meaning. But in fact, I get them to use it as an educational tool to embed, our history, land, whose land is this university built on? So it's designing activities for students to engage in deeper conversations about the course they're in, about the land, about who we are as Kanien'kehá:ka people, our history. And to me, that's a really important principle when we're designing, when we're reframing our curriculum. Instead of, like looking at on a global level, let's focus on the local level and let's look at who we are, incorporate our history, our perspectives across the curriculum.
And a final question, which you've spoken to somewhat. Are there early adopters among the faculties who have already started their journey or achieved some early measure of success?
Yes. There was one faculty that I worked with in engineering, and we were able to kind of get the feedback from the students, which was really great to see. And I had him present with me and shared it with faculty across the university when we gave a workshop to the university, the faculty. And so that's how we were able to kind of do that. I've asked faculty to, when we do this work, to if they can share anecdotal evidence or stories from their journals or from their the course evaluations, and just kind of sharing that with the faculty in the workshops, which is demonstrating the thinking, the attitudes are changing. And I'll tell you something, one of the fundamental findings among students is that they get really angry because when they start learning about the true history of this country, what Canada did to our people, it angers them. And rightfully so, because they've been miseducated, right? So for me, it's all about developing a critical consciousness among our students, right? Is getting them grounded in our history first and foremost. At the same time, learning about the history of colonialism and its impact on Indigenous peoples in this country. So it's learning the truth. And so, yeah. So I guess we will stop there for now because we need to, sorry.
Hi, I just want, is that me? No? Yeah. I'm Catherine Martin. I'm the Director of Indigenous Community Engagement at Dalhousie University. It's a new position as a result of many new positions from TRC. I'm a member of the Millbrook Mi'kmaq Nation community in Truro. And I just wanted to thank you, like as everyone else, for your work. As soon as you started, it was like I don't know how to explain it, but everything you said, it was just like I walked into the world of my understanding. And I didn't have to translate it in my brain, not from language to language, from worldview to worldview. And so I thank you for that because it was relieving to not have to do all this work and just listen. The two-road wampum, I use that in many things. I was taught about that by Art Solomon and another professor years and years ago, and it just opened my eyes. So I use that in most of my talk and trying to explain how not decolonizing, like decolonizing isn't our work. Decolonizing or indigenizing, those things I just never was able to grasp because that's not our work, and I don't know how one can decolonize a colonized world, and that takes away from the work we're doing, trying to live the two-road wampum, trying to say, yeah, that was a worldview that was brought here, but never involved or included our worldview. So there's a lot of catch up. We're doing lots of similar work. The strategic plan 5 or 7 years ago for Dell's Indigenous faculty and staff, is outdated. So much has happened even in 6 months, let alone the last 5-10 years. I just want to say that, it's never ending. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think that's something that needs to be adopted across the country and around the world, that, there's a lot of catch up. And then with that, then there's a lot to move forward on. And my cautions are just from my own work here and across the country is making sure that the materials and the people we're pulling in to inform the academia of whatever it is they're trying to do, we have to have great caution, because we've already seen when people just pick people off the road or hear a name and use them, it might not be the best guide to do the work you're doing. So my caution is that we all want to do the right thing, but don't redo what we've done in the past, where we just grabbed anyone without really understanding why, who, and whatever. And I love your response again, because it just, I knew what you were saying right off the bat when you said, how did you come up with those, 6 or 5 or whatever values to use? And you said, I had so many more. And your response was, well, I got it from my heart. And that I loved so much. And I thought, oh, now how do you apply all of the academia rules to that? Okay, so what does that mean, coming from your heart? What does your heart speak about, and how, and where, how is it informed? And I just started thinking, just saying I got it from my heart, and there was no reaction or counteraction, was just heaven to me. So thank you, and Walaliok to all, but Walalin. And lastly, the fact that you've opened this up for free for us to get online and hear is what I dream of and envision, that we really need to change a lot of that old way of everybody's in competition with each other. Instead, this is a time of learning where everybody needs everybody. So the sharing of this and sharing of the work across the country that is working is just so valuable. And I hope we can sort of change that a bit of the competition and say, no, it's about sharing. The basis for Mi'kmaq way, the Mi'kmaq governance is the basis is sharing and living as a family would live. Walalan.
Nyawa. Okay, I guess, is the food here?
Yes, there is. So we will be moving on to a brief health break and a discussion period in person. And while we do so, there will be an intermission on Zoom and YouTube. For our folks on Zoom, I've posted some links for you to virtually participate in a discussion forum. You can post some comments, some questions about the key priorities, and we will be back at 12:30 to discuss some of the findings from these discussions.
Right.
So we're going to begin by going through each of the priorities, and we'll start with number one, and maybe you could talk about what the first priority is and the questions that were posed to your group.
It's on? Okay. Carol Brosnan, Indigenous Algonquin Nation. I'm the advisor for Indigenous curriculum and pedagogy, working at the with Dr. Donna Goodleaf. So the first priority was to decolonize and indigenize curriculum and pedagogy university-wide. So the general consensus was that it's long overdue. So it's also to do with time, was that it is going to take time. So that's was also something that came out from when we spoke. And also in respect to, I did have a few Indigenous faculty. So they are also, as you know, well, there's 17 about here at Concordia. So they feel that they're often over solicited. So for them, some of the time that they do give to decolonizing and indigenizing is often time in their volunteer time, because it's near and dear to their heart. So, you know, also in respect to indigenizing the curriculum, they were saying that a good point that was brought up was that it really needs to be from a decolonized lens, and that it shouldn't just be like one section of their curriculum, and otherwise it just becomes like really tokenistic. So that was some of the points that were brought up. And since we are you know, short on time, I'll pass to my colleagues here. Miigwech.
Perfect. Well, you have the mic, right? Yeah, you take that.
Hi, my name is Ariel, and I work at the Center for Teaching and Learning. The second priority, again, is cultural safety across diverse learning spaces. So yeah, a lot of things were said. It is kind of hard to summarize so quickly, but I guess I would say there were challenges. The first question was around, I guess, strategies that faculty can take, and the second was more around barriers and challenges. And what I noticed is there were like very specific ideas for strategies, such as taking little steps, creating, working on the syllabi. There was also a lot of talk about how challenging it can be as a chair to play this role where you're basically building consensus, but not everyone is necessarily on board. And a lot of talk about collaboration. How do we think about how do we collaborate across different units, and that it's so great to see that there's all these different units involved and named in this plan, and that it's great to know that there's those resources. yeah, definitely the challenge of within the Quebec context that systemic racism isn't recognized. So that means that's something that we cannot lean on as much. And then in general, there is a lot expected of students and faculty. And so it can feel overwhelming, and that there isn't, like, how do you find time to address conflict around cultural safety in the classroom when you feel like in general there isn't a lot of time and a lot expected of everyone? Yeah, I hopefully I got most of what was discussed. Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, I have a mic here. Hi, Gwe di Deluise Alavicaire, di Biwach Aklistuguch Deluawi. My name is Alavicaire and I'm Bigma from Listuguch, and I'm the senior advisor within the Office of Indigenous Directions. So for my table, I had priority 3, and that was to develop and co-design new programs in collaboration with Indigenous communities. So I had 2 questions, and this is kind of really had a lively kind of discussion that we really focused on relationships. So the first question was, what program specific opportunities are there to co-designing new programs with Indigenous communities? In fact, that's the second. And the first one was, what supports might help faculty to begin to respectfully engage with Indigenous communities about their distinct needs and priorities. So we talked about, the first was the awareness of the plan. I think that's the most focal. The focus is to really, how can we share this with our colleagues, with the faculty members, with the deans, the chairs. Second, it's then the expectation for those who are pursuing, co-designing these new programs. Faculty need to do their homework first. And that's been a priority, to see what's out there. So there were some examples by Sean Williams, Research's Ceremony, talking about the 4 R's: respect, relevance, reciprocity, responsibility. And then we talked about Kahante Hormiller, for an example, at Carleton, where she does the bundles of learning. And then we also talked about the opportunities, how we could teach faculty to engage with Indigenous communities. What does that look like? So we talked about those pieces of cultural safety, which is already outlined in Donna's plan, and also connected the how to the action, because there's also oftentimes that fear, in making those first steps and getting your hands dirty. And then supporting to build capacity. I think that's the workshops, the facilitations, and also providing case studies. What are concrete examples that we can do to develop these programs? And then we have ways to collaborate within the Concordia and beyond. So we're not just looking, specifically at this community, but maybe we're looking at Ganawagi or urban communities like Native Montreal, Resilience, the Native Friendship Center of Montreal. But the most important part of all of this was really relationships. It's building those relationships from the start and making room for Indigenous voices from the start. So we need to center their voices, our voices. And for the next question is specifically around support for co-designing new programs. We talked about not just looking at new programs, but also seeing what's available existing, right? How can departments and units come together and share some of those best practices, but at the same time to talk about, what didn't work? What can we do next time? So that information of knowledge from one unit to the next. That reflection piece, what does a decolonized lens mean? And we need to be really critical of the work that we do, how we center ourselves, and how we approach that to students, staff, faculty, and the community. And then lastly, I think the most important thing was really starting small, because making mistakes, is bound to happen, but continue to move forward and learning from those mistakes and sharing the outcomes to the community. I think that is it. Yes, that's it.
All right. Can you hear me well? All right, so the last but not least, our table here, we discuss priority number 4, which you see here on the board, expand and support collaborative sharing learning communities across faculty units. So how we looked at it was, what kind of advice could we give to Concordia in terms of this endeavor? And so the 2 main themes that I gathered from the table of individuals that we had across the university was accountability and sharing resources. These were the two big themes that really came across in some of the advice that was being given. One was to bring in the chairs, get them involved. I think we heard a chair earlier volunteer loudly to say that they'd like to learn more, and former chairs saying that they really want to be part of this. Team up with other departments and resources and become accountable. And so, part of inter-faculty, interdepartmental, inter-program is getting to work with each other and sharing information together and, making networks. We had a person from the library, which we were very fortunate to have. So of course, that makes sense. It should be a place where you have resources. Concordia should have resources, and they do at the library, and someone focused on, providing resources on Indigenous knowledges, decolonizing curriculum, Indigenizing, and so forth. But add on to that, make the library part of it and share resources. So whenever faculty, departments, professors, students, whatever, we heard this mentioned earlier, is that, we should share those resources, because it's not all on Donna. Donna's not the holder of all the information. She's probably the most knowledgeable, but it shouldn't be on all her shoulders. We should inform ourselves, but ensure that you do check-ins to make sure that you're on the right track, and resources also specific to discipline. So, there may be resources that are more applicable to one faculty or program than it is to another. So looking at resources that make sense for the students in your program. Forming interdisciplinary groups. There was one individual that shared, if you want to get people together, then, have a cooking class, a sewing class, a walking group from different departments, just to get together. And this is where a lot of good informal conversations can happen, just as we were doing here, and capturing the learning and, again, accountability. One I wanted to share as well was that there was give voices to those Indigenous scholars and artists in your classes. The person that shared that said that they don't have a lot of knowledge in what we're talking about today, and she didn't feel that she was, the expert to be able to teach about this. She said, well, how I'd like to contribute is to share the voices, bring in the voices, and bringing in people from our communities. I'm from Nunavik originally, so if you bring in people from my community or communities around here, we would be, very honored. And I think there was more than that, but I think we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to kind of just say some words of closing, and I want to express my deepest thanksgiving to you all that have come, to those that are online on Zoom. I want to thank my community, my family. I want to thank the Decolonizing Curriculum Pedagogy Committee, Advisory Committee, Elaine, Chelsea Patterson, Monica Gagnon, Hannah Claus, Ariel, Alan, Natasha, Carol, Melissa, for being my strength and giving me guidance in terms of this work that has unfolded in front of you. And I also want to thank the Center for Teaching and Learning, my colleagues, for your support. I want to thank Manon Tremblay. You're super. You're my rock, and you're really awesome. And I really appreciate your friendship and your support on a professional level, and helping me to promote this work across the university. I also want to thank the Provost and Whitelaw, Sandra Gabriel, and Manon again. And I'm just really happy. I'm glad it's over. But today is just the beginning. what I shared with you today, it is just the beginning of the work that we have ahead of us. And I want you to know that, we're here for each other. And it can be a really exciting journey that we're going to go on. And it's going to require a lot of hard work. It's going to require you getting really uncomfortable and really looking at yourself and who you are and why you do the things that you do, and how can we, go about on a really good learning journey to change and to make this a really learning place for all of the students that come here. But I also think about those babies, the children that are coming from our generations, from our people, from our community, and the faces that are piercing from the earth. We need to make sure that these universities are ready, because they're coming up stronger. They're going to be stronger in who they are because of the fact that we are teaching Ganyageha culture in our communities. These children, Ganyageha is their first language. And how are you going to be ready to make sure that you have the space and the curriculum to really support and validate these upcoming Indigenous students that are coming here, that are waiting to come here? And so for me, I'm really excited. I want to work with you. I'm so happy it's Friday. And I'm just glad that this is done. And I hope that this becomes a really excellent tool for us to always go to when we forget. And know that you're not alone, and that we're here together to support each other. So thank you very much. Now, Goa. So I guess we'll close. And thank you.